Let's take a quick look at some kit bashing projects. Okay, so I had a special request on things that are kit bashed. As you can see here, there's my Hercules. Started out as a DD40, and I decided I'd make it run long hood forward, and I would put an MP15 cab on it. I've been working on this thing for so many years now. It's like 6 years. And there's an entire, I think it's 20 videos on building this thing. But as you can see, what I did was I took, this is from an Atlas Trainmaster, this base here. Then there's a base for the MP15 cab, Atlas, and Atlas cab. And I cut off the old cab part, and I mated this piece of Trainmaster onto the frame to give me what you see here. I haven't started detailing it hard at all yet, because I did the two 24-volt Mabuchi motors in it. There's my front Hercules. I 3D printed that. I don't know where I got that front end from. Salvaged off the junk pile. We're going to do a little side discharge dynamic brakes. And there's just a couple of detail parts on it. GE bathtub exhaust. 2 of them. And that is a kit bash. So I basically cut the parts off I didn't want, and I just found some scrap parts and mated them on there. Find the series where you can see the motor overview. I don't want to take the shell off right now. One of the weaknesses of this is a very old DD40, and the weakness is that the trucks do not stay in their socket every time you pick it up. But the performance on the Mabuchi motor, which is brand new, is unbelievable. It's not like anything I've ever tried before. This thing moves in milliamps. And there are 2 motors in here. They are wired parallel to each other, so that if you're going to put a decoder in a 2-motor unit, it's as if the decoder thinks there's only 1 motor, because they're wired parallel to each other, and that's how you can control them. And I had heard that was a good way to do it, but I'd never actually done it, and I'd never seen anybody else who did it, so I decided I'd go ahead and try it, and it works great. It's unbelievable. Okay, that's a kit bash. Then I've got old Ajax here. There's another one. I've already got the coupler on, so I'm not going to take the shell off to show you. Okay, so this is a DD40. Oh yeah, on both of them, if you look at the fuel tank, what I did was I coated them in Bondo, and then I cut a strip so it looks like there's 2 fuel tanks. But again, with the side discharge, bathtub exhaust. I took a piece of oyster tin, pounded it with a hammer, and I covered up the hole here where all those fans were. That cab is, I don't know what it is, actually. I don't know, but this here is a Canon Company high nose U-boat front end. I put that on there. I thought a high nose DD40 would look pretty cool, and it does. It looks great. Now this one is a single motor, and it uses my favorite motor, which unfortunately is now out of production. But I'm going to show you because I also use that motor in a couple other projects. And here it is. This is the motor that is in that DD40. Now this is an old metal side frame SD45, and I've got two of these here. This one's all wired up, tested and everything, and the other one is here. It's all set up. Just got to connect the wires on it. So what I did with this one, I 3D printed a cradle. I'll show you what a cradle looks like. It's basically just a box with a kind of a round indentation in it. But in a 3D printing program, or in a 3D design program, that's what it is. It is a box where I've taken a cylinder, set it down on there, and then subtracted the cylinder from the box, and I've got this. And the motor fits in it. And now I can make as many of these as I want. And it is glued using marine or automotive goop. That is the way I mount all my motors now, is goop. I do not use screws, because I found out using screws, no matter how good you are, you have a very high risk of not squaring up the motor to the shafts. But using the goop, I'm able to get it on there. It sets up a little bit, then I run it a little bit back and forth until it kind of self-squares, and then I hold it, and it's good to go. This is the super strong rare earth magnet motor. It's been around about 5 years, and they ceased production on it now, unfortunately, because it's such an awesome motor. It's 24 volts. And if you've never seen any of my conversions before, you're like, well, why would you use 24 volts? A couple reasons. One, since the track power is, on this track here, it's about 15 volts. Even at maximum power, this motor will never reach the 24 volts that it's rated for. At max power, it's not very fast. But it's good. I mean, it's good layout running speed, even at a quarter power. It's really good. It's super slow. But let's suppose it ran into something where there was some binding, or for whatever reason it could not turn the shaft. And you had a stall, a dead stall. These 3D printed joints, this motor, it's like a screwdriver motor. It'll rip these joints apart and it'll keep turning as a safety measure. When I find it and fix it, I just throw on another one of these. I'm good to go. It will not rip these apart pulling anything that it can pull. But in a dead stall where it cannot turn the shaft, tear it apart, it protects everything. It's kind of a breakaway thing. Very, very nice safety feature. Also, no flywheels. When I do 24 volt motors, I remove all flywheels. You do not need them with this. And in DCC, where you use momentum and braking, these are perfect because they're way more responsive than a normal motor. They're far more responsive than a 12 volt motor. And the momentum on these is fantastic. They really do well, especially those new Mabuchi motors, which unfortunately are only single pole at this time. I'm betting there will be a double pole one coming soon. Those would be amazing with momentum. It's speed matching. Without the flywheels, it's way easier to speed match. Okay, let's take a look at something else. This here, there's a whole video series on this. Same principle, same thing, but this happens to be an ancient brass Alco DL600B RSD15. Same thing, I used that super strong motor. I built these collars to hold the drive shafts in them, these joints. Glued it in again, runs amazing. It's incredible, especially on brass. It's quiet. You can just barely hear the gear towers on this. And on that Tenshoto SD24, which is a single shaft motor, I did the same thing. Here is a Gilbert. I bet you guys don't even know what this is. Here's Gilbert's RSD-15 from way back in the 1950s, and I put in a 24-volt motor. This Gilbert has a lot of problems with power pickup. Fortunately, after working on the Kraus Maffei ML4000, I discovered a way better way to do it, and I'm going to tear this thing down apart, and I'm going to redo it. And I'm not going to use this motor. Now, these motors look like motor you would find in your typical Kato or Atlas. They're not. They are not the same. This motor housing is used for so many different kinds of motors. And you'll see it all over the place, and you'll think it's the same one. It's not. This is a 24-volt one. So if I compare this side to side with one from Kato, this one, at the same voltage, this one is half the speed. It also has way more torque than that. You can't really pinch your finger and install this. It's that strong. It's a good motor. It's very responsive. But I want to put in a 6-pole motor in here, which I just got, and take this one out. Because I got to find something to try them 6-pole motors in. They're just too cool. Then I'm going to fix this power pickup. This thing shorts a lot, and I know why, and I couldn't figure out a good way to insulate it. And then I'm going to clean up all these weights and junk in here so they look nicer. And then we'll have an operating Gilbert from the 1950s. Okay, projects coming up. Here are my 2 projects coming up. One of them is going to get this cab. These are old SD45s, those ones I showed you with the new motors. Taking out the fans. I'm going to put in something cool there. I don't know what. I probably scratch built something for that. This one here is going to get... This one here is going to get the same setup as this guy right here. Go get that set up. It's going to get a little side discharge unit there. This guy, I don't know what he's going to get yet. Basically, I stripped the paint. Stripping paint. So the first thing to do is I have a tub with 91% alcohol in it, and I drop the shell in and see what that does. Sometimes that works all the way. A lot of times it doesn't. But that's my first thing I do to them. If I don't get all the paint off, then they go into the ultrasonic cleaner with mean green on 54 Celsius. About 15 minutes, they're generally totally cleaned. The only paint I found that resists that is the Santa Fe blue and yellow on the Atlas SD24. For some reason, whatever that paint is, I have found nothing that will strip it. It ends up looking a lot like this, but I can't get it all the way off. So I'm just going to go ahead and primer over that for another project. Wasting too much time stripping for very little result, it's just wasting time. So that's going to be a kit bash on these. And the cool thing about these Athearn Blue Boxes, you know, a little saw, razor saw, or I have a milling machine. Take the parts off, find a new part. This is a GE cab from Atlas, I do believe. That'll go on there. It'll be kind of a short version of the SD70M. And that's about it. That's kind of what's going on around here right now. To see the motors, look at the DD40 playlist, and you'll see those motors in action. The F7 playlist, that one has a dual shaft version of this motor in it. The Tenshoto SD24 has this motor in it. And you can see those in the test. That SD24, the one where I'd like to go around the 15-inch radius, that's pretty sweet. Okay, let's look at an upcoming project. Okay, now I've been working on this for a while. This is the old sea liner. Now, you see these at train shows for like $2 or $3 because nobody wants them because they have this horrible front end. But I took that front end, took an oyster tin, I cut that front end off, I took an oyster tin and I pounded with a ball peen hammer and bent on a bending table and bent myself a front end for it. See that? You can even see the oyster tin rim right here. But it looks cool. I have to say, it looks really cool. So I got two powered ones, and then I've got this dummy. Now, I've got wheels in here that can pick up power. The dummy is going to do nothing but pick up power. I'm going to use a 2-pin connector cable to connect the dummy in the middle. It'll have a connector. It will probably have a connector, and they'll have to make some small cables. So then the dummy will distribute power to both of the A units, and they'll all act together. After doing the GP50 and the GP38 high noses, the lifelike and the Bachmann, which worked amazing when connected together, that was kind of my test bed so that I could get on with this project. These have these motors. I'm not going to replace these motors. They work good. They're probably not suitable for DCC. Yeah, they could be. I don't know. I've always thought I could add a safety device. Like I could put a fuse in so that if it goes over a certain number of amps, it'll just blow the fuse and cut the power. That would be one way to do it. But these motors, they're difficult to replace because of the vertical mounting. And they're integrated into the shell kind of in a difficult way to do anything worthwhile with them. But they work. I rebuilt them. So that's about what I got for you. By special request, we wanted to have an overview of what we got going on here. Alrighty then. Okay, one more show and tell here. Just got this. Yep, that is the old school Bachmann pancake motor BD40X. I have another one that I rebuilt like this. When I rebuild this, I'm keeping the motor. I can improve performance dramatically on this, and it should run just great, and I can improve sound on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some acoustic features on the inside that will change the way this motor sounds. A very clever idea that I found in an acoustic architecture book, that I'm going to put some stuff in here. It'll change the way it sounds. And they're really easy to get running smooth. They have so many wheels that you can add power pickup to that they're extremely reliable. And it doesn't have to be the world's strongest puller. It just has to run decent. And that's all we got.